All right, we're back. So, thank you for staying with us until now. This is the final panel of the day, and it's a 40-minute discussion about scientific entrepreneurship. And to do that, to get that conversation going, we already have our panel here on stage, and I would like to introduce first Roger Blears from Blears LLP, which is a corporate finance advisor in the UK. Then we have Angela Ivanova, co-founder and executive partner of Lam'On. She will tell us later what that's about.
Yeah.
And then we have Anna Barjasic. Did I say it right? Almost.
Barjasic.
Okay. Good.
Great.
CEO of Connectology and member on the EIC board. So on this final panel, we want to discuss a little bit about how we can develop the next generation of scientific entrepreneurs, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. So we're going to tackle a few issues such as mobility, business skills, but also access to private and public funding. And I would like to start with you, Angela. So you, and the reason I want to start with you is because your trajectory offers a very good case study for what we're trying to discuss here. So you have founded this company, which is at the intersection of art, science, and entrepreneurship. Can you introduce us to the company, the idea behind it, and also what do you think were the main challenges along the way?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. First, it's really a pleasure for me to be here. Lam'On is a company that has been in R&D for the past 3 years, trying to find the best, perfect, suitable recipe for the industry of the printing and packaging sector. So we want and we will start manufacturing biodegradable, bio-based and suitable for compost, laminating film for cardboard and paper, and as well as packaging film for to package food, cosmetics, other goods, etc. Our main challenges for sure were to find the scientific people back in Bulgaria, because unfortunately most of the people that are studying in science eventually flee out of the country to develop themselves and find a better future for their knowledge and specialize even better. Of course, it was very challenging to find money and to fund ourselves, because being a starting company wasn't easy, especially in Bulgaria, not to mention that we started this entire idea 4 years ago. It wasn't very hot topic, even though we were talking about single plastic usage and some bans from the EU that were coming, but especially the product that we are tackling, the laminating film that is used in the printing industry, is not in any statistics or in any ban or report or directive that will come to place in the next few years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there were a lot of challenges that we will speak in this panel, but most of everything was, yes, funding in the very, very early stage of risky business that hasn't then actually even made an industrial prototype back then. And of course, the scientific background and the scientific experts in our country.
Okay, we'll circle back to all these challenges, and we'll talk about them throughout the discussion. And I want to ask you a question about, I mean, we've talked all day about this gap in research in R&D in the EU. Is there also an entrepreneurship gap, and how do you see that being fixed?
Well, definitely, I would say that there is an entrepreneurship gap that we have in Europe, and it's quite consistently following the research and innovation gap. Essentially, I would say that when it comes to, Central Eastern Europe, we have this historical baggage that also kind of puts entrepreneurship in a negative context, and I think there is a cultural difference there, in comparison to the non-widening countries. And, in some of the countries, people don't really deal well with the definition. You'll have people ask you, oh, so you're an entrepreneur, but who's your employer? But who is, behind this, Or for instance, sometimes people even think maybe it's a criminal activity or whatever. So it's really, no, seriously, I think we see this in many widening countries. I think overall, what Angela said, and she's a fantastic example, and entrepreneurs like her, especially as an EIC beneficiary, we see really that the risk is the key problem in the market. So the entrepreneurs don't start companies because there is too much risk. Banks don't lend the money because there is too much risk. Investors don't invest because there is too much risk. So what do we do, right? So I think we have these public entities, and it's our duty to fix this in the market and to bridge this gap, really, like with the financial instruments like the European Innovation Council. As we have discussed, there are some others, but we are really keen to support the deep tech entrepreneurs, especially also from the widening countries, because we can only succeed together, all together as a continent, and be competitive if no one is lagging behind, as they like to say.
What is the situation in EIC competitions in terms of success rates between East and West?
Well, it's dire. I would say that there is a clear difference there, and just to give you a couple of numbers here. So when we talk about the EIC accelerator that Angela so successfully rocked, we are talking about 5% of overall funding allocated to the widening countries, whereas we have around 8 or 9%, actually from the last cutoff, 8% allocated to the widening countries. Whereas, for instance, countries like France or Germany or the Netherlands, specifically France, in the last cutoff, 17%. So that's really, indicative in terms of these comparisons and differences. That's regarding the accelerator. But for instance, if we look at the other instruments, because obviously accelerator is the most popular one, but for instance, Pathfinder, we're looking at 5% success rate, 5%, allocation of funding, 1%. I'll stop there.
Okay. Roger, Anna was talking about risk, risk aversion particularly. What's your opinion on that, and how do you see the funding landscape, the private funding landscape in Europe in particular?
So first of all, Florin, thank you very much for inviting me onto this platform. I think the starting point is to recognize that growing and developing a knowledge-intensive business is not a charitable endeavor, it's a commercial one. And in any commercial market, there are normally only 4 winners, 4 players. It is imperative to involve those with experience in the private sector who can mentor the entrepreneur, as well as provide money. And particularly if one's going to invest in deep tech, deciding what your product is and deciding where your market might be is going to be particularly difficult. And so I think the initial key point I'd want to make is it's important not to form a spin-off company too soon, but to kick the valuation can down the road and deal with it later. The danger is if you overvalue the technology at the outset, then if it fails, the investors won't come back again. The entrepreneur will salami slice his technology, it will emerge again, a second corporate iteration, but you've lost your investors. If you undervalue, then you've given away the equity. So what you need is to develop the tools that allow you to take in investment before the time at which you can value the deep tech that you want to develop. As a generalization, the venture capital landscape is, of course, that the US started all this, and Western Europe is a late starter in comparison, and Eastern Europe is a late starter in comparison to Western Europe, and therein lies many differences. But you know, to be amongst the top four, Estonia is a leading example. To have five times the average unicorn average in Europe is a tremendous achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. So you said there are definitely differences between the US and Europe in general, but also within Europe between West and East. Do you see any differences in the types of challenges that scientific entrepreneurs are facing in East and West?
So I think it begins with being a question of numbers. If one goes to the US, the money is so much more. Business angels will put in 250,000. In the UK, maybe 25,000. These are significant differences. And so compared to the US, there is less later stage money in Western Europe. And I imagine less later stage money in Eastern Europe. In the US, 20% of all venture capital funds comes from pension funds. In Europe, it's only 2%. So the monies are less. I'd say also the culture is very different. So there's much more of a sales-orientated culture in the US and I guess Western Europe compared to Eastern Europe. So those would be the particular drivers, cultural, cash, and the mentoring ability.
Angela, I want to ask you, how did you deal with this lack of funding?
Well, yeah, with the help of the EU tools, actually, we've been through quite a lot accelerators before reaching to the EIC accelerator. First off, in 2018, we've been through Climate Launchpad, which is an EIT tool program, and then we've been through the EIT accelerator in the regional innovation scheme. So this is how we've managed to actually reach to the point of our laboratory prototype, but then there was this issue of not having a lot of equipment in the Bulgarian universities in order to have this mid-industrial prototype made, so we had to jump onto industrial one right away, so we just started going on and off to different programs in order to get more grant money and to float into the startup. Back then, it wasn't even a company officially. Yeah, the ecosystem in Bulgaria is starting to bloom, as I've mentioned earlier, and we do have a lot of people that are trying to help more and more, so we were lucky enough to get an angel investments in the investors in 2020. With this help, we've actually managed to reach to the point of the industrial prototype and to be able to persuade a subcontractor to give us their machine for quite a few days a week or something like this. So not to mention that the raw materials and everything is expensive. So we were just lucky enough to be stubborn enough also to reach out for those money, those opportunities that are actually there sitting and waiting to be.
Yes, but you're talking about mainly European opportunities. What about national opportunities?
Well, no, not that many. Being a starting company in Bulgaria is just now starting to be something, actually. For the past few years, there weren't any opportunities if you didn't have any financial years back, meaning that either you are going through some program that gives you mentoring, which is great, but a little money, which is not so great, or you just, or that's the only option. We didn't have any national programs and opportunities that we could take advantage of.
Okay.
Super silly, but it's true, and this is actually why we were held back in growing the innovation and reaching out to the point of market readiness.
Okay. Before I move to the next question to Anna, I want to reiterate that the fact that questions are welcome. So if you want to ask something, either here from our live audience or from our online audience, please think of your questions and raise your hand when you have one. So, Anna, Angela was just talking about this lack of support in Bulgaria. Do you see, I mean, from your experience dealing at the EIC level with this kind of situations, do you see that this is a pattern in countries with emerging economies?
So first of all, I think when we talk about the EIC and when we talk about the widening countries, we need to understand that not all the countries are the same, and there is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So as we see, and it quite resembles the scoreboard, let's say, classification, where we have, you know, countries like Estonia, strong innovators, and then, you know, moderate and emerging ones. Essentially, what we are, so we have a widening country working group within the EIC board that I'm chairing, and we are really, you know, passionate about this topic. Essentially, there is a few things that we kind of mapped out as something that we would like to analyze more and provide more recommendations on. For instance, we are looking into bias, whether there is any bias not only on the geographical level, but also on the age level, you know, gender, sophistication of the entrepreneurs. You know, when they come to pitch, maybe not everyone fits the Silicon Valley Shark Tank model. So, so that's definitely one thing that we would like to analyze and focus a bit more on. Then the second thing is what we see more, and what is more common to the emerging markets, is the fact that there is no capacity from the side of external experts or consultants to help the applications of the companies, and this has come across today in several discussions already. So essentially, imagine Croatia, where I'm from, you know, that has joined the EU 10 years ago. How does a country like that get this knowledge and the capacity in delivering excellent applications for a specific instrument like the EIC? So this is something that we also need to look into, because this, by the way, non-widening countries also use the external support when they're applying because of the lack of internal resources. However, they have much more choice. And I think the choice is a word that, or a concept that we haven't maybe had so much, you know, historically in these geographies that we're now talking about. So this opens, unfortunately, some space for malpractices and abusive practices from the consultants in the field, like, for instance, taking equity in the companies, you know, IP, etc. So this is something that we also want to point out. And obviously, there is a lot of actions and a lot of challenges, but we have also discussed self-confidence of the entrepreneurs to apply. Maybe they don't think they're good enough, or this kind of instrument is suitable for them. You know, boosting the success stories, or, for instance, organizing more of these kind of events in widening countries to draw the attention, maybe, of those who haven't heard about the instrument yet.
Okay, you were mentioning abuse. Is it because the entrepreneurs themselves are not aware of the risks, or why do you think it happens?
So I think overall, you know, entrepreneurs in non-widening and widening countries are equally prone to maybe be the victim of some kind of malpractices, depending on their level of knowledge. But when we're talking about the widening countries, I would say in general, probably these knowledge levels are less since the ecosystems are emerging. And you know, I think around 10 years ago, if you wanted to Google what is a business angel in any country, especially, you know, here, Not sure that you would get much info. So now it's up and coming, and with that, obviously, entrepreneurs are building more capacity, but still, you know, we need to be more transparent about things like that.
Okay, I see we have a question coming from our online audience. First of all, no questions from the room still? All right, maybe a bit later. So I'll read the questions that we got online. So it says, I like the role of the EIT promoting entrepreneurship among scientists with courses and programs, plus some funding that are accessible at the early stage. Then it works very well with the EIC programs like a Pathfinder. Do you think it's a good idea to put more money on initial business training part or more on the latter, financing, seeding part? And I think, I don't know, who wants to pick that up? Maybe three of you have thoughts on that? Who wants to start? Yes.
Yeah, I can just quickly comment. I think, like, as they say, throwing money at the problem doesn't necessarily fix the problem, because maybe sometimes the lack of money isn't the problem, but how you actually use it. So I think what is important, obviously, depending on the technology, depending on the sector, that's the prerequisite of all of these discussions. But obviously, I think initially some mentoring and risk mitigation and help overall for companies from really experienced mentors and business people or technological experts, not someone who will tell you, well, you need to change the color of your pitch or whatever. So that coupled with some initial funding, it's better, I would say, than just throwing money out there and then expect that entrepreneurs will figure it out.
I would agree with that. I think mentoring, matchmaking an experienced entrepreneur with the science-based, inexperienced entrepreneur is vital, far more useful than class-based training or training programs run by the major accountancy firms on how to write a business plan. This is not mentoring. You need somebody who can answer the questions that the entrepreneur is only going to ask in private. And so it's vital, far, far better than accountancy-based training programs. So mentoring as well as the money, and to be on the front foot in any East European country, it makes sense to form a network of experienced executive directors and entrepreneurs from the private sector, EDEN, if you want an acronym, of experienced eminent degrees who can guide and mentor your science-based entrepreneurs.
Angela, what do you think?
Yeah, I cannot actually add anything more, because overall it is guidance. It's not just pointing out on you should do that and that and that. You should be confident that somebody is over there to guide you as well. And
Okay, so it would be someone who guides you along the way. Not it's not about getting a course and then boom, you know how to do things.
Yeah, of course. You have to be. You have to know that maybe you will fall, but there's somebody else to catch you at some point, or maybe pick you up if you fail. And it's not such a big deal to fail either way, but it's better to fail with somebody out there to guide you.
Right, Anna, you want to come in?
I would just like to stress out the importance of long-term support from a specialist and someone who is experienced mentor, because oftentimes we see acceleration programs or events or whatever, they do their deliverables and everything is done, and then the entrepreneurs are left alone. So that's something that we need to deal with, and not only training for entrepreneurs, training for policymakers, training for the trainers. This is really important, because we are discussing about risk, and I know also for instance, the other panelists have a lot of experience also with the venture capital and fundraising. But for instance, in Europe, we have some great co-investment funds in some of the countries that could be easily replicated to emerging economies. But is there interest? Is it a political will problem? Is it a knowledge problem? So this is how we can, and we need to involve all the stakeholders to really, try to mitigate these risks for the companies ultimately, and for investors, and then, it's a win-win situation.
Okay, I want to ask another question. Well, it's actually for the three of you again, and it's related to a more fundamental problem, and that is, how do you actually convince more scientists to get into this entrepreneurial mindset? Do you see that as a problem as well, especially in Central and Eastern Europe?
I think success breeds success. 20 years ago, I formed a fund called the Rainbow Seed Fund for 6 of the UK research institutions, led by what is now known as the Science Technology Facility. And the fund manager, a chap called Terry Swainbank, would always say that in the first 18 months it was very difficult to attract researchers to come forward with their ideas, until the first success, and the first successful entrepreneur bought a red Ferrari, which he'd park on campus. And after that, he had no problems at all. You need role models who aren't ashamed to show their success, and this will, human nature being what it is, encourage others.
Would you be more encouraged by a red Ferrari?
Sure. I mean, who wouldn't? In our case, it was more like we were like bridging the business and science by like reaching out to the scientist and offering him the business part. So that was in our case, and that is actually pretty much what I can say on the topic, because it was more or less, I cannot go into the scientific part that much, but I can guarantee you the business quality, if I may say. So it is the working together process that is getting you the red Ferrari as well.
I think it's the whole system.
Yeah.
So if it's easy to set up business, if it's easy to find your entrepreneur and your mentor, if it's easy to find the money, if it's easy to find the tools to, as I said earlier, kick the valuation can on the road, then people will step forward. If it's difficult, if it's too bureaucratic, then it's not a good environment.
Anna, you wanted to say something about
Well,
that?
I would say that not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, and not everyone wants to be one. I think you see in a lot of cases where researchers are literally dragged out of labs, or people are like really trying to get onto the technology to commercialize it, but maybe some people just don't want to do that. They just want to research. However, as you were saying, it's a system issue, and there is a number of different stakeholders obviously involved. So, for instance, if you have R&D incentives that are attractive, that's one thing also for the companies. When you have, for instance, how difficult it is to get the IP out of a university. This is a huge barrier, in my opinion, and oftentimes this IP was financed by the public money through the university. So these are things that we need to think about if we want to really, support entrepreneurship overall and in connection to science, because this is something really relevant. Many universities don't see entrepreneurship or startups in general as a revenue stream. So and it's just a thing that we need to probably discuss as well.
Is that something that universities should think about going forward, particularly
Definitely,
now?
definitely. I mean, it's not only money per student. Why it's not money per startup that was created, and make this whole process much easier for someone who dares to be an entrepreneur in, let's say, scientific communities that are different.
Yes, we have a question from the audience.
But is it so that clear that companies are going to be a revenue stream for universities? It can happen, of course, but shouldn't creating companies be considered as a public good contribution by universities, which then go on to being profitable companies and the profit goes elsewhere? I'm not completely convinced that statistically the effort by universities to create startups is really bringing revenue. I mean, maybe it's true, but it's.
I mean, universities are not the only player. When I'm saying everyone shares the responsibility, and if we want to incentivize the scientific entrepreneurship, we are also looking at universities.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, but maybe they should not do it with the perspective that it's going to bring them gazillion
Of
euros.
course, no. I
Yeah.
mean, investors are not doing it either. So you know, it's you have like in 100 companies, you have 1 or 2 who are successful. Maybe you lose it all. So you know, what's the big deal? And you invest in many times. Oftentimes, you invest your own money.
Okay, good. Now I'd like to go back to Angela, to your story, and we said in the beginning that we will go through a few of the challenges that you had during your experience founding and developing this company. So, how's the company doing at the moment?
Gladly, good. Since May this year, we've been actually going through the EIC Accelerator program. We've managed to reach to the point of getting a green light over there. We've been applying two times previously, so 1 time previously. We got the Seal of Excellence in 2020, and we got the green light actually in December. So since May this year, we've been going through the EIC Accelerator officially, and we're now setting up a factory in Sofia, waiting for machines and expanding the team with machine operators, engineers, and everything. So pretty much things are just starting now to develop and to launch officially the product. We do have quite ambition to put more and more products in our portfolio, so the R&D will only bloom as well. And we have already set the lines of more and more innovations that will be also patented. We are most of everything actually impact driven, so let's forget a little about the red Ferraris. At the end of the day, we do want to, well, a little. At the end of the day, we want to fix an issue, and the plastic issue is starting to be more and more of a problem for everybody, and we do have to fix it as quickly as possible. So we want to develop more and more products that will be widely used in the market, not only a boutique lines that will be super expensive and we would just tap ourselves on the shoulder and yeah, look, we did it. We want to fix it and make people aware actually of the problem more. So this is why I'm really glad that we're here. And I am invited here because I want to point out to people that laminating film is something that is super transparent and nobody's actually talking about it. It's not even in the statistics of how much plastic from the lamination is going in the landfills. So roughly it's about 1 million tons per year, but that's like our own estimations. Not to mention how many is going to the world's oceans and everything. So there is a lot of actually space for research and development and more innovation in that field. And I believe that through the widening, we can do better.
Okay, you said you want to expand your R&D activities as you grow your operations, but you also said that you had trouble finding the right researchers to get your project going. So how do you reconcile the two? How things have changed since a few years ago?
Well, in particular in Bulgaria, not a lot, but through programs and conferences and things like this that we are exchanging and networking all the time, we are expanding our own network but with scientific people more and more. So experts are there. I have to underline here that even our co-founder, Filip Publikov, has been specializing here in Prague for 2 years. So, and he came back in Bulgaria as a biopolymer specialist and is stubborn enough to continue being in Bulgaria, but with his knowledge and with his network of other people that he knows, and with our opportunities that conferences and EIT and EIC summits are giving us, we are reaching out for more and more people And we see the potential of having an R&D hub, even our
Okay.
own R&D hub, I mean. So we'll see.
Okay, so networking is essential, both for the development, the research, the development, and the growth part. But it seems that, especially here in these countries, in Central and Eastern Europe, that part is missing. So people need to work a lot more on learning how to connect with the right people. Is that something you agree on, Anna, for example?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
I would say that indeed, you know, there is certain advantages of being in certain geographies because you are culturally shaped in a way to respond to different cues. And obviously you have maybe an abundance of things which you may not have elsewhere. So in that sense, yes, but you know, there is this theory in psychology that I like a lot, which is called locus of control, which places either the control within a person, and then the person is the one who controls their life and actually does, you know, everything to be productive for themselves, or depends on when the locus of control is outside of the person, then or person places outside of themselves, then they are dependent on, you know, external forces and things like that. And I think, you know, people who have this entrepreneurial spirit, they usually tend to have this, you know, take control of their life and the actions, and they go and actively seek the network, seek the people who they need, you know. Like they didn't even seek for people, they literally dragged them back to Bulgaria. So it's, you know, it's also based on the personality, but of course also on the geography.
Okay, thank you. Roger, I want to come back to you. And you have experience with devising innovation models for CERN at the intersection of science and entrepreneurship. Can you tell us a bit about that, and whether you think there are any lessons that could be applicable to our Eastern European conundrum here?
Yes, I'd be happy to. On Tuesday, I posted on our website the application form that I developed for CERN. This is an application for Young Genius funding. This is a contract. It is a tool between an investor and the science-based entrepreneur, which funds the development of their science before one can value it. And then the instrument provides for the investment to be converted on a pick and mix basis, either into slices of the IPR rights that are eventually created, or for shares in the spin-off company that might be formed. So avoiding the problem that I alluded to earlier, that one mustn't seek to form companies too soon. So for CERN, we recommended two products. First, Young Genius funding as a bridge between financing deep tech entrepreneurs where you can't yet work out what they're doing. You wouldn't understand it, perhaps. You couldn't define it. Certainly couldn't define what the market might be for selling it. And the world of private equity. And the answer is, in the financing, you need a hybrid model for public and private money. Throughout the last 2 days, we've heard a lot about how EU structural funds and cohesion funds and all other sort of funds are declining. And so the challenge becomes, if funds are limited compared to funds that might be available in the States or within Europe, for East European countries compared to what might be available in Western Europe, you need to make the funding that is available to you go further. And the way to do this is not to distribute it as grant money, but to take the money and use it as collateral to provide a government-backed equity guarantee fund. So the fund would raise capital from private investors, and the state would provide a guarantee against losses that the fund may suffer. It may not suffer losses, but you would have this guarantee that if it does, the private investors can call on that guarantee. One wouldn't look to call on this guarantee for 10 years. This is a model which Israel developed years ago. They were called the Uriba or the Uziba funds, I forget which, and they formed 12 of them. And in fact, none of the funds ever had their guarantee called. So this became free funding for the public sector. But it clearly makes a lot of sense, because even if the guarantee were 99 cents in the euro, you're 1 cent better off than if you provided grant funding. If it's 50 cents in the euro, then you've doubled the purchasing power of the money that would otherwise be available. So this is a model that I commend to East European countries. I'd be delighted to help you establish it. But as I say, the contract for Young Genius funding can be downloaded from our website since Tuesday.
One final question for you. Is the UK still relevant to Eastern European startups looking to expand? Despite of Brexit and,
yes.
and the whole
very much,
thing?
very much so. So Brexit is but a bump in the road. The UK is eminently commercial. We look to the world. We have a very attractive investment scheme for private investors in the UK called the Enterprise Investment Scheme. Mm-hmm. There are a range of investment tax reliefs, the principal one being if you invest £1, the government gives you 30p back as an income tax relief. And any company in the world can qualify for investment, provided they have a permanent establishment in the UK. So in the last 12 months, we've invested in a tech company from Canada called Cognitive Spark, a company from Australia called Liftango, and a company from Singapore, whose name I forget. And they all established a permanent establishment in the UK in different means. A common way is to put a topco, a UK topco, on the East European Trading Company. You keep your jobs in the UK, but the capital structure, the funding, comes into the topco in the UK. This is now becoming quite common, because UK VCs are looking out across the world for where is the best technology. So if you have the best digital in Estonia or the best deep tech in Bulgaria, then yeah, we would be interested. Brexit is, as I say, just a bump in the road.
All right, that's very optimistic. So we're almost done, I think, but I want to ask Angela and Anna a final question, if you can answer it as briefly as you can. What would be the advice that you would want to give scientific entrepreneurs in Central and Eastern Europe? One advice.
Yeah, well, take advantage of opportunities.
Okay, good.
If you don't have anything to lose, go ahead, try.
All right, well, let's do that. Excellent. Thank you very much to the three of you, and I would want to invite you all to give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for staying with us until now. We really appreciate it. I would like to thank once more to our partner, Science Europe, and to our supporting sponsor, the Initiative for Science in Europe. And do not forget to go to our website, to sciencebusiness.net/widening. That's where you will find our latest stories on research and innovation in Central and Eastern Europe. Sign up to the newsletter. The next edition comes out next Wednesday, and there will be more events like this coming next year. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the drinks. So we have a reception outside, and I hope we can all relax a bit with a glass of wine. Thank you very much.